Hello YouTube. Bane666 here. Welcome to Propaganda of Toxic Feminism, the series in which I expose and debunk falsehoods, misconceptions, and outright lies spread about the men's rights movement. So let's get stuck into it. Okay folks, let's start with an article called, Scary Side of Men's Activism. Oh boy, let me guess, Freddy Krueger is now an MRA. Well, I guess it would be as believable as Elliot Rodger. But let's see what the article has to say. For some reason when you say men's rights activism to people who aren't familiar with the term, they think it is something good and not something crazy and terrifying. But let me guess, you are going to explain to us why we should be afraid of dealing with men's issues, right? Next. In theory, men's rights activism shouldn't be something nasty that strikes fear into the heart of women active in feminist circles. Well, not if they are actually interested in equality, but on the other hand, if their only intent is a gold medal in the oppression Olympics, and they constantly rant the mantra, only women have issues, then I could imagine the concept of male issues, and those trying to deal with them, being something rather frightening. Next. In theory, it should just be men working on issues associated with toxic masculinity. Ah, here we go. Men are only allowed to have issues, and deal with issues, through a bigoted feminist worldview. So typical. Let me guess, the high number of male homeless is because of toxic masculinity, right? Nothing to do with society, which means both males and females, seeing men as nothing but disposable. Next. Men's rights activists could provide support for men who struggle with uncontrollable and inappropriate aggression, the inability to express emotion, and they could provide support for men who have suffered sexual assault and don't know where or who to turn to. Uncontrollable and inappropriate aggression? Is feminism doing anything to support women with uncontrollable and inappropriate aggression? Of course not, because feminism only projects negative male stereotypes and positive female stereotypes, well, apart from the all women are victims stereotype, which personally I think is extremely harmful to women. And then we have the line, the inability to express emotion. Really, so men are incapable of expressing emotion? Or is it that men express emotion differently? Or possibly society, which means both men and women, look down on men openly expressing their emotions? When she says, the inability to express emotion, what she really means is, the inability to express emotion as approved by females. And lastly, we have the line about supporting male victims of sexual assault. Which we do. Of course, to do this we need to spread awareness. When someone mentions the words, sexual assault, we as a society, which means both men and women, have been trained to think automatically of a female victim and male victimizer. When in reality, males can be either the victimizer or the victim, just as females can be either victimizer or victim. It's true that some feminists will acknowledge male victims of other males. But female victimizers are anathema to feminists, even when their victims are other females. This would suggest that they are more interested in supporting an anti-male ideology than actually helping victims. Next. Those who understand what feminism is will understand that feminist groups do try their hardest to tackle these issues, and though they might not always take center stage in tackling patriarchal systems which disadvantage women, toxic masculinity will also be dismantled. In other words, men are the problem, feminism is the solution. The same misandric bullshit that prevents us from working with this type of gender feminist ideologue. Next. A lot of men, though, are uncomfortable with their own issues not being the focus of attention all of the time, and so they have broken away and set themselves in opposition to feminism. I find this funny. Because every time we try to do something for men's issues, feminists try to shut us down because we aren't focused on female issues. Maybe if feminists stop spreading lies and misinformation about us, or standing in our way, and trying to shut us down, or blaming all the world's woes on toxic masculinity and the mythical patriarchy, then we would have less reason to put ourselves in opposition to feminism. Next. these groups of men get together on Reddit and 4chan and talk about how unfair it is to be a man in this world. Okay, so I don't use Reddit or 4chan, but let's assume her statement is true, so what? I'm sure there are groups of feminists on Reddit and 4chan, not to mention infesting Tumblr, talking about how hard it is to be a woman. So what? What's the big deal? Next. It seems mostly that women have once or twice rejected these men romantically, and they have never recovered and now hate all women. Oh, here we go. So the fact that I'm against the gender sentencing gap isn't because I think both men and women should receive equal and fair sentencing, based on the facts of the case, as opposed to gender discrimination, but because I was apparently rejected romantically, once or twice. So it has nothing to do with the violation of basic human rights, it's actually all about vagina? Wow, and here I thought I was fighting for equality. What our young author has done here is not only demonstrate her complete ignorance when it comes to the issues faced by males, but also reveal her gynocentric worldview for all to see. Next. Ostensibly they claim to stand up for men who have trouble getting custody of their children in family courts, or men who have been sexually assaulted, or men who suffered from mental health issues and don't feel they can seek help. But mostly they just complain that sometimes men are shown as being dopey in films and that women aren't like vending machines you put kindness tokens into and receive love and affection in return. Wow. And here is the perfect example as to why the men's rights movement is incompatible with gender feminism. Next. These men think we live in a world where women are the dominant force, and men are lowly, disadvantaged and oppressed by feminist, double talk, and propaganda. As I have pointed out constantly in this series, oppressed is a word feminists use, not MRAs. Neither males nor females are oppressed in the Western world. Of course, feminists have now redefined the word oppression to mean having an air conditioner running in an office, or being embarrassed to fart in public. Those poor middle-class, well-educated, employed, well-fed, Western women. So very oppressed. Maybe people in the third world could take up a collection for them. Next. These are the kind of men who boycotted Mad Max, Fury Road, because there were too many strong women in it. Oh boy. Not this again. That article was an opinion of one individual, who is not an MRA, and the article appeared on a pickup artist site, not a men's rights site. I know of no MRAs who boycotted Mad Max, and we most definitely didn't boycott it as a group. On the other hand, feminists lost their shit over one scene in one episode of Game of Thrones.
Alright, so, but those wonderful strong women have really had a rough season, this season, and some of the fans have reacted negatively, some have reacted really positively.
So our question is, I guess mostly directed at the showrunners, and is, will season 6 more overtly address and complicate these criticisms by showing them as the pitfalls of patriarchy, rape culture, and other forms of oppression? Thanks.
Yes.
Funny, isn't it? Hundreds of male characters killed, or tortured, or castrated, and not a peep from feminists. Yet something bad happens to Sansa, and it's suddenly the end of the world. Here's a tip to feminists: if you want female characters to be treated like male characters, that means both good and bad shit is going to happen to them. If you are going to lose your minds every time something bad happens to a female character, then you aren't really interested in both males and females being portrayed equally, nor are you interested in good character or story development. Next. For the most part, men's rights activism on the internet is just whiny and pathetic, but sometimes it gets scary. There are frightening levels of entitlement that show up in these forums, with men talking about how they will get revenge on all of the women who have spurned them. Really? No examples I see. And how do we know these men, as she calls them, are men's rights activists? Oh, that's right, anyone a feminist thinks is a misogynist is an MRA, right? Next. And some of them have sought revenge. For example, last year in Santa Barbara, Elliot Rodger wrote a 100-page manifesto on what the world should do to women and then went out to shoot up a sorority. I should have seen that one coming. For what feels like the 1000th time, Elliot Rodger was not an MRE. He wasn't involved in any websites or forums. He wasn't subscribed to any MRA YouTube channels. He never once mentions men's rights in a video or his manifesto. There isn't even any evidence that he knew of the existence of the men's rights movement, let alone took part. His involvement in the men's rights movement is entirely a fiction created by dishonest feminists. Once again, another example of why we cannot work with gender feminists. Next. Shortly after, many other men took to men's rights activism forums to voice their support for this man. Seriously? We are to believe that MRAs, and not just a handful of internet trolls, supported the actions of Elliot Rodger? Citation needed. Next. This is exactly the kind of thing that scares women. We are not taking away men's rights. White men have not been systemically oppressed in the same way that women have. Once again we see the word oppression. But I would agree with her that this is why women are scared. Because they have been fed so many lies and falsehoods from feminist hacks, that they'd be crazy not to be scared. Unfortunately, their fears are based on lies. Next. Feminists are not trying to trick the world into a system where women oppress men in the same way that men have oppressed women. And here we see the word oppression again. Next. Seeing men work themselves up into a frenzy about women saying no to them and getting halfway decent roles in movies is not only annoying but terrifying.
My head I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain.
How are women supposed to live their lives when the lines they can overstep are so close together? If men want to have their own spaces where they focus on issues that pertain directly to men, that is totally fine, but these spaces don't need to be an attack on women. The problem is, feminists actively try to prevent us from having those spaces. Next. What men, white men in particular, need to remember when they think their rights are in jeopardy is that the world literally exists as a space for them, a space that sticks up for their rights, and women trying to get a slice of the pie is hardly going to ruin their lives. Her ignorance is unbelievable. She has no real concept of men's issues, or the men's rights movement. She only sees the men at the top, ignoring those on the bottom that support the system, and is only capable of seeing herself as an oppressed victim. How sad and pathetic. There is a quote from Sheldon Kopp which sums this type of feminist up perfectly. It goes. There is the image of a man who imagines himself to be a prisoner in a cell. He stands at one end of the small, dark, barren room, on his toes, with arms stretched upward, hands grasping for support onto a small, barred window, the room's only apparent source of light. If he holds on tight, straining toward the window, turning his head just so, he can see a bit of bright sunlight barely visible between the uppermost bars. This light is his only hope. He will not risk losing it. And so he continues to staring toward that bit of light, holding tightly to the bars. So committed is his effort not to lose sight of that glimmer of life-giving light, that it never occurs to him to let go and explore the darkness of the rest of the cell. So it is that he never discovers that the door at the other end of the cell is open, that he is free. He has always been free to walk out into the brightness of the day, if only he would let go. Next. You may remember that a month or two ago I featured a video from Exposing Men's Rights Activism, as well as looking at their Facebook page. Well, I've come across an interview with one of their moderators on Cake. The interview isn't about cake, it's on the Cake website, which also appears not to be about cake. If the Cake website was an actual cake though, there is no doubt that it would be a poison Kool-Aid flavored cake. Anyway, on with the interview. The article is called It's Not Female Privilege, but Patriarchal Backfiring on Men, Exposing Men's Rights Activism. Oh boy, here we go. If you're a person whose reasoning has led you to recognize that structures of oppression surrounding us are hidden in plain sight, then you may often have the unpleasant experience of being exposed to the toxic radiation gently wafting off of online and real-life meninist trolls who have completely missed the point of, well, everything. First paragraph mentions Meninist trolls, in an article supposedly about MRAs. Instant fail. Next. You know, those insufferable faceless, logical debaters, believers of man-crimination, and other breeds of Meninists who insist that systemic violence against women is not real because women get free drinks sometimes. And yet another mention of Meninism, when we are meant to be talking about men's rights. And this is only the second paragraph. This is going to be a long one, folks. But we shouldn't be surprised. Next. Ever heard of Paul Elam? Today, he's at the forefront of the men's rights movement that has its beginnings in the Bund für Menschenrechte, League for Men's Rights. Sigurd von Hoberth and Leopold Kornblue founded the League in Vienna in 1926, with the explicit aim of counteracting the excesses of post-World War I women's emancipation movements. Junkie. Well, I can honestly say that I've never heard of the Bund für Menschenrechte before, and I'm guessing most of you are in the same boat. So let's go check out the Junkie article and see what it has to say. Elliot Rodger, and the dark heart of men's rights activism. Oh boy, it's going to be one of those episodes, isn't it? Okay, let's get this over with. The article reads, events such as these are, if not exactly commonplace, then at least depressingly familiar in the United States. In the past few years they've seen similar events in Sandy Hook, Aurora, Virginia Tech. As ever, this latest killing spree will stir up a debate in the U.S. about both gun control and mental illness. But what separates this year's Isla Vista killings from other massacres is that Elliot Rodger not only appears to have had serious mental problems, but also subscribed to a virulent form of misogyny currently known in general as men's rights activism. Rodger's internet activities and the message boards he frequented demonstrate that this activism played a key role in Rodger's rampage, even though the majority of his victims were men. Oh look, the author has a citation. Could this finally be the proof that I've been asking for over a year now? Could this link lead to actual concrete evidence that Elliot Rodger was in fact an MRA? Let's click it and find out, shall we? The link leads to an article by the Daily Kos, called Elliot Rodger, Gunman in California Mass Shooting, was influenced by the men's rights movement. Well, that's a pretty serious claim. I wonder if they have any evidence to back it up? Let's read on and find out. After a long quote from Rodger, the article reads, the true alpha male. What those who call themselves the men's rights movement aspire to be. Oh really? I think someone might be thinking of the pickup artists. But let's continue. The men's rights movement, as they call themselves, is a nebulous group of pickup artists and misogynists who found each other online, and are attempting to create a movement based around their hatred, disdain, and fear of women. And look at that. There's the claim that pickup artists and men's rights activists are the same, when clearly we are not. And in case anyone is wondering where Elliot Rodger's false association with the men's rights movement started, it was here. This poorly written article with no actual evidence to support it is ground zero. But let's continue and debunk this shit once and for all. We know for a fact that Rodger was influenced by this movement, as he has subscribed to multiple pickup artist, or men's rights, channels on YouTube. For those here that don't use YouTube, when a user subscribes to a channel, they receive notifications when that channel posts a new video. And once again the false claim that PUAs and MRAs are the same thing. Because chasing pussy is a human rights issue, right? Unbelievable. But let's see if any of the channels are MRA channels. And of course we find 0 MRA subscriptions, not a single one. But let's read a little more from this bullshit article. They include The Player Supreme Show, which rails against the feminization of men and talks about how to pick up women. RSD Free Tour, which is a series of self-help seminars run by RSD Nation, a pickup artist site. There's also a user called McHenry Cruiser who, in addition to being a pickup artist, is a comedian who has some kind of beef with Louis C.K., and another called Squatting Casanova, who seems to be your average PUA. I'm still digging through some of the folks he subscribed to. So in other words, nothing but pickup artists. Not a single MRE. Next. He is what the men's rights movement calls an incel, which is short for involuntary celibacy. It's a hot topic in various parts of the manosphere. The funny thing is, before feminists started insisting that the word incel was a men's rights term, I'd never heard of it, and judging by many of the comments in past videos, neither had other MREs. Once again, this is a bullshit claim. Rather than seeking mental help for some obvious issues, he sought out the men's rights movement. He watched their propaganda. He internalized their hatred of women. There's no shortage of anti-woman rhetoric and nonsense. For some of the worst of it, check out the Red Pill's Pussy Pass forum, where they take isolated incidents, remove them from any rational context, and blow them way out of proportion. Once again, there is no evidence that Elliot Rodger ever visited any men's rights websites, forums, or YouTube channels. None. Zero. The author's claims are pure fiction, or should I say, propaganda. Which is funny considering that's what the author accuses us of. Next. He listened to these guys talk about being hard, and tough, and true alpha men. He did what they told them, and began lifting weights. We know he had an account on Bodybuilding Forum which was recently deleted by their moderation team. And once again, the term alpha male is generally used by pickup artists. And what exactly is wrong with lifting weights? Is that somehow now considered misogynistic? Next. So this kid who needed some serious mental help sought out the destructive, BS views coming from the men's rights movement. He felt entitled to sex with women. He blamed women for not providing him with sex. He exposed himself to hateful rhetoric about women. None of which has anything to do with the men's rights movement. Now let me stress here once again, this article is ground zero. It's the claims in this poorly written, devoid of facts, article, that inspired the hundreds of other articles, all claiming Rodger was an MRE. And all it offers, the only thing it offers, is that he was subscribed to a couple of pickup artist channels on YouTube, that's it. Nothing more. Every claim we have heard since that Elliot Rodger was an MRE, or that he was active on MRE websites, or forums, or YouTube channels can be traced back to here. And at no time did any of those so-called journalists take the time to check if those claims were in fact true. Not a single one. Which is very interesting because the author of this article, named Oligarchy, whose real name is Will McLeod, had an update to his article, which included: I've also been accused of conflating various different parts of the manosphere with each other. To men's rights activists everywhere, when you stand right next to rape apologists, to men who call women animals, and when you allow groups like Reddit's, the Red Pill, to stand with you, when you scream about false rape claims as if all claims of rape are false, it invalidates everything you might be trying to accomplish. No, what invalidates what we are trying to accomplish, is bullshit articles, devoid of facts or evidence, which is then used by ideologues in the media to demonize us. But nice attempt at backpedaling, Will. Next. I have a laundry list of my own regarding the ways that men and boys are discriminated against in this country. The prime example is the way that our shelter system rips homeless families apart. Because there are so few family shelters, and so many shelters for single mothers, men often choose to be homeless so that their families can have a roof over their heads. This is an issue I've worked on, and that I care about. But I've never seen you folks mention it. That's probably because you spend all your time looking at pickup artist sites, and not actual men's rights sites. Next. Probably because it has to do with socialism, poor people, and people who might not be white. Wow. So Will, Oligarchy, McLeod, clearly knows nothing about our movement. He hasn't fucking bothered to even look at it. He just has a bunch of bigoted narrow-minded stereotypes in his head, based off some PUA bullshit, and in his opinion that's good enough. Why bother with facts, right Will? What an arsehole. Next. Instead, you yell about false claims of rape. Even if this is an issue you care about, it's being drowned out by all the rape jokes you've been posting on your cute little forums. Citation needed. Next. When you stand shoulder to shoulder with the worst that the manosphere has to offer, don't be surprised when you all get painted with the same brush. And who exactly is this worst of the manosphere we stand shoulder to shoulder with? We actually self-police extremists, unlike feminism. Next. Despite your protestations to the contrary, I cannot tell the MRAs apart from the PUAs from the Red Pillars and Incels and all the other disparate groups. And that's your image problem for failing to make yourselves distinct from each other, not a problem with our perception. No, it's actually just laziness on your behalf, combined with your ideological bias. I doubt Will McLeod could name one actual MRA if his life depended on it. And he's clearly just confessed to falsely equating MRAs and PUAs. His update was made Sunday, May 25, 2014 at 8:08 a.m., well over a year ago. Yet we still constantly hear the false claim that Roger was an MRA. But I've gotten completely sidetracked. Let's head back to the Junkie article. It continues. Who are these men's rights activists? Given that most positions of power and influence in contemporary society are occupied by men, nearly every position in the current Australian government's cabinet, for example, it seems weird that there even is such a thing as a men's rights movement. What rights are men currently denied? Well, I only need to name one to destroy your argument. And the most obvious one is the right to bodily integrity. As the author mentioned Australia, and is in fact from my hometown of Melbourne, let's use an Australian example. Although this example is still relevant throughout the Western world. So what is the legal stance on female genital mutilation in Australia? Coverage of existing offences. At present, female genital mutilation is criminalised exclusively by state and territory laws. All states and territories have passed criminal legislation prohibiting female genital mutilation. Further, in each state and territory, these laws apply extraterritorially to protect Australian residents from being subjected to female genital mutilation overseas. Accordingly, existing legislation provides extensive criminalisation of female genital mutilation both within and outside Australia. While existing state and territory laws comprehensively criminalise female genital mutilation, 3 areas of inconsistency have been identified that could present opportunities to strengthen Australia's legal framework. These relate to consistency of penalty, consistency of age coverage, and consistent extraterritorial application of offences. This report recommends that states and territories consider amending their laws to address these issues. In addition, during the review of existing laws, queries were raised about how existing female genital mutilation laws would apply to female genital cosmetic procedures. Such procedures are alleged to be occurring more frequently since the last time model laws were discussed by the jurisdictions. This is a complex issue, which this report has been unable to fully consider. However, this report recommends that further work on this issue be progressed. So the practice of female genital mutilation is outlawed in every single state in Australia, and with good reason, because it's a harmful practice that should be outlawed. And here in Australia, females have the human right to bodily integrity. If they are under the age of 18, no one has the right to cut or surgically alter their genitals without an exceptionally good medical reason. And those cases are rare. But what about male genital mutilation? What about males under the age of consent having the basic human right to bodily integrity? Well, here in Australia, that right doesn't exist, if you are male. Next. The historical genesis of the movement makes it clear that men's rights activists are not so much arguing for a coherent position but, instead, are arguing against another position, namely, feminism. Hold on, but cannot the same argument be used against feminism? If we are going to play this game, then couldn't it be argued that feminists are just arguing against patriarchy, or traditionalism, or gender roles? Just because one movement, or position, disagrees with or argues against another, doesn't mean that movement or position is not valid. And many things that feminists claim to be against, MRAs are also against. We often hear that feminists are against the draft, guess what, so are we. We also often hear that feminists are against male circumcision, guess what, so are we. although feminists don't seem to be doing a lot to fix these issues. Our problem is with the ideology at the core of mainstream feminism. And that ideology runs counter to us achieving our goals. That ideology blames all the world's problems on males and masculinity, while at the same time ignoring or excusing away our issues. So of course we stand in opposition to it. What choice do we have if we want to achieve our goals? Next. One of the first men's rights movements, the Bund für Menschenrecht or League for Men's Rights, was founded in Austria in March 1926 with the explicit aim of counteracting the excesses of post-World War I women's emancipation movements. And I would have to ask, how exactly is that relevant to the modern-day men's rights movement? Next. The strength and popularity of men's rights movements since then seems to have closely tracked the growing influence of feminist movements, such as the great flowering of second-wave feminist thought in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Now, thanks to the Internet and its own corresponding explosion of feminist voices, men's rights activists from across the globe can come together online to share their grievances about the modern world. Share their grievances about the modern world? You mean like feminists do? And social justice warriors? And gamergaters? And MGTOWs? And atheists? And Christians? And right-wingers? And left-wingers? And sports fans? And competitive origami enthusiasts? And just about any other group you could name? What's your point? Is it somehow different when MRAs do it? Next. The key assertion of men's rights activists is that men do not have power or privilege over women. Rather, they posit, men are victimized by a social structure that favors women. Men's rights activists point to a number of facts that, they claim, support the central tenet, the fact that men are more likely to die while working than women. The fact that men are more likely to be the victims of violent crime than women. And the fact that women are more frequently awarded full custody of children in divorce proceedings than men. They also point to some facts that are not facts at all, such as the risible claim that 50% or more of rapes reported to police did not happen, when in fact sexual assault is vastly underreported. These, they argue, prove that contemporary Western societies are structured to favor women at the expense of men. Okay, let's deal with this 50% figure. So it's time once again to click the link and go further down the rabbit hole. This time we find ourselves at the SPLC website, with a report called, Men's Rights Movement Spreads False Claims About Women. Oh boy. Anyway, the relevant segment reads. The claim, close to half or even more of the sexual assaults reported by women never occurred. Versions of this claim are a mainstay of sites like registerher.com, which specializes in vilifying women who allegedly lie about being raped. Such claims are also sometimes made by men involved in court custody battles. My understanding is that Registerher was originally a spin-off site from AVFM, but now seems to be run by John the Other and Diana Davidson. And I think it's safe to say that it's changed considerably since this article was written by the SPLC. So I'm unable to check if the 50% claim was ever made, or if SPLC has reported it in its proper context. Although I find the sentence, such claims are also sometimes made by men involved in court custody battles, very strange. Why would a father trying to get custody of his children bring up rape statistics? Unless the SPLC is referring to the women who allegedly lie about being raped line. But once again, why would a father trying to get custody of his children in court bring up that some women lie about being raped, unless of course, he's been accused of rape by his ex during the custody battle? I'm guessing the SPLC are incapable of seeing any ulterior motive on the part of the accuser. But let's continue with what SPLC has to say. The reality, this claim, which has gained some credence in recent years, is largely based on a 1994 article in the Archives of Sexual Behavior by Eugene Kennan that found that 41% of rape allegations in his study were false. But Kennan's methodology has been widely criticized, and his results do not accord with most other findings. Kennan researched only one unnamed Midwestern town, and he did not spell out the criteria police used to decide an allegation was false. The town also polygraphed or threatened to polygraph all alleged victims, a now discredited practice that is known to cause many women to drop their complaint even when it is true. In fact, most studies that suggest high rates of false accusations make a key mistake, equating reports described by police as unfounded with those that are false. Now this is very interesting, because feminists do exactly the same thing. They assume that any and all allegations are true, even when they are unfounded, and often when they have been proven false. The simple truth is, we don't know the actual number of true or false claims. The vast majority of rape claims are simply unknown. Next. The truth is that unfounded reports very often include those for which no corroborating evidence could be found or where the victim was deemed an unreliable witness, often because of drug or alcohol use or because of prior sexual contact with the attacker. They also include those cases where women recant their accusations, often because of a fear of reprisal, a distrust of the legal system or embarrassment because drugs or alcohol were involved. The best studies, where the rape allegations have been studied in detail, suggest a rate of false reports of somewhere between 2% and 10%. The most comprehensive study, conducted by the British Home Office in 2005, found a rate of 2.5% for false accusations of rape. The best U.S. investigation, the 2008 Making a Difference study, found a 6.8% rate. Let's assume for a moment that 6.8% of rape allegations are proven to be false. That does not mean that 93.2% of rape allegations are thus true. The simple truth is, in most cases we simply don't know. But back to the Junkie article, as we are just about to be schooled on the pickup artists, oh joy. Next. Men's rights activists and pickup artistry. A recent development in men's rights activism is its connection with another social movement, that of pickup artistry. The central idea of pickup artistry is that women can be seduced by applying certain techniques, including negging, a compliment with a backhanded sting in its tail, designed to make a woman feel insecure, peacocking, wearing one outlandish accessory that will draw women's attention, and kino, touching a woman casually during conversation to establish a precedent of physical contact. Of course, pickup artistry is creepy as fuck because it's so overtly rapey. What it says to men is that if women aren't interested in you, you can use this one-word old trick to make them have sex with you. It basically treats dating as a video game rather than an interaction between two equal adults, with sex as the reward for mastering complex maneuvers of button pushing, just like the fatalities in Mortal Kombat. Okay, so he told us what pickup artists are, but he failed to demonstrate one very important thing. Did you pick it? He claimed a connection between MRAs and PUAs, but at no time does he explain it or demonstrate it. In fact, all the things he talked about have zero to do with the men's rights movement. But he has some more to say, so maybe he's just building up to the reveal of this connection. Next. Pickup artistry, which reached the mainstream thanks to the popularity of Neil Strauss's 2005 bestseller The Game, also comes packaged with its own evolutionary theory. This theory argues that certain men are alphas, who can effortlessly dominate other men and have their pick of women, while nice guy, betas, will supply women with their emotional and material needs without ever getting any nookie. Men who cannot demonstrate their physical or social attractiveness will become incel, or involuntarily celibate. There's that fucking word again. Next. When you combine this pseudoscience with men's rights activism, a toxic worldview emerges. Women are seen as parasites who feed off men and don't even have the decency to sleep with them to return the favor. Wow. Once again note that he doesn't actually show a connection, he just insinuates. But it's time we climbed back out of this rabbit hole, and headed back to cake, as we had been off on a tangent, and still have the exposing MRA's article to rip through. So picking up where we left off. Far from sensitively approaching issues that actually impact the health, dignity and life of men, MRAs have become notorious for their mad trolling skills, logical incoherence, and insistence on retaining privileges for the privileged. That's funny, because if you replaced MRAs with the word feminists, It would be one of the best descriptions of feminism I've heard in a long time. Next. No longer a fringe movement constricted to static ideology, MRAs have become a persistent, often violent force online, stooping to rape and death threats when defending their stance. What our author is doing here is just assuming that anyone who makes a rape or death threat is an MRA. And this type of assumption is at the heart of most of the arguments against the men's rights movement, as we have just seen with Elliot Rodger and the Pickup Artists. Their logic goes like this. Someone disagrees with you, then they must be an MRA. Someone says something nasty to you, then they must be an MRA. Someone criticizes feminism, then they must be an MRA. Someone's a misogynist, then they must be an MRA. An internet troll leaves a comment, then they must be an MRA. It's almost as if they believe that anyone who doesn't believe exactly what they do, must automatically be an MRA. It's a very, you are either with us or against us, type of mentality. And they just assume that anyone in the, against us, group, must automatically be an MRA. And we see a funny example of this much later in this interview, although as I'm running out of time in this episode, that part will have to appear in part 41 of this series. But our author does give us a citation for the rape and death threats claim. It links to a Jezebel article titled, Rape and Death Threats, What Men's Rights Activists Really Look Like. The article reads, men's rights activists are rage-filled misogynists who claim feminists intentionally cover up issues like male rape and workplace injury rates so women can achieve global domination. Those pesky feminazis, however, keep getting in the way, so it's up to the MRAs to win the world over. And how do they do this? By threatening to gag, rape and gut bitches who dare to question their flimsy politics. Charlotte, the red-haired woman in the video below, was one of many protesters at a recent lecture sponsored by a men's rights group at the University of Toronto. A MRA documented her attempts to read an article by our own Lindy West detailing how feminists also want to dismantle society's archaic definition of masculinity. Charlotte was pissed off and feisty because she was consistently interrupted as she tried to explain how feminists hate the patriarchy, not men themselves. Her message wasn't anti-men, it was anti-gender stereotypes and anti-oppression. But she wasn't subservient. And now she's paying for the crime of being a woman with a public opinion. Oh, poor old Shanty Binks, just trying so hard to educate us uninformed menfolk about the evils of patriarchy, and we just wouldn't listen. Here's the footage of her trying to educate us.
Is a list of the things that we're working towards. Now, if you would shut the fuck up for the 50th billionth time...
She could do with some work on her delivery. The author of the Jezebel piece would have us believe that poor old Shanty was just a strong woman with an opinion, who was being silenced by those rude misogynistic MRAs. In fact, the MRAs were trying to engage her in conversation, while she was intent on only having her voice heard as she read her list. Just a tip to Shanty and Jezebel, a conversation is where both parties speak. What Shanty was delivering was a lecture. Our Jezebel author also conveniently forgets to mention that Shanty was part of a protest that shut down the MRA event by illegally pulling the fire alarm. How strange that the Jezebel author forgot to mention that. It's almost like she is trying to paint a negative picture of MRAs, while only presenting a pure, unblemished version of feminism. But let's continue with the article. After the video received around 300,000 views in 1 week, thousands of MRAs joined forces to harass and cyberstalk Charlotte. They have circulated her personal info, dredged up details about her past. One fellow told Charlotte that her dog who died years ago would be disappointed in her, and sent her messages threatening to rape and kill and rape her again. One of the more PG-rated ones promises that, "We will not rest until your unholy blood is shed." 300,000 views in a week? Are we to believe that only MRAs watch the video? How does she know the threats came from MRAs? Did they start each message with, "Hi, I'm an MRA, and I want to kill and rape you"? in that order? Or do you think that maybe, just maybe, most, if not all of this is coming from outside the MRA community? I know this from first-hand experience, as the first ever video I posted on YouTube was about Chetty Binks, and that video has received over 2,500 views. If you look at the comments section, you will find that it's very different from the comments sections on the rest of my videos. My normal audience are MRAs, MGTOWs, gender egalitarians, gamergaters, anti-feminists, humanists, and even some feminists. Whereas the viewers for my Chetty Binks video belong to a much wider audience outside of those of us who normally discuss and debate gender politics. To claim that only MRAs sent death or rape threats to Chetty Binks is ludicrous. Her self-righteous bullshit clearly resonated with more than just MRAs. The author also ignores this same behavior in her own community. Maybe she should read this article on the very website she writes for, you know, to see the bigger picture. And that bigger picture is a simple one. People are idiots, and often resort to sending anonymous threats instead of making rational arguments. They exist in all communities, unfortunately, including men's rights, feminist, and social justice. They also exist in the world outside gender politics. Oh, and as for someone dredging up details about her dead dog, that information is on her YouTube page. It's public info. It's not like someone hired a private detective to go through her garbage. But back to Cake. Q exposing men's rights activism, EMRA, a Facebook page that, you've probably guessed it, deconstructs the MRA movement and its myriad poorly conceived notions about gender, masculinity, sexuality and violence. So you are probably wondering how EMRA deconstructs the men's rights movement. One would think that maybe they'd pull apart men's rights videos or articles, the same way I do with feminist videos and articles. That would make sense, right? But of course, that would require an anti-MRA group to actually talk about men's rights activists. Oh no, apparently the best way to pull down the men's rights movement is to mainly, in fact almost exclusively, talk about non-MRAs. Makes perfect sense. Next. In the admin's own words, the page focuses on intersectional feminism from a radical working-class perspective, mental health issues, fostering a healthy attitude towards neurodiversity, rights for sex workers, people of color and the trans community. And the trans community? That's fantastic. I would expect there to be many posts condemning radical feminism and its constant attacks on the trans community then, right? But of course not. That would require being critical of a nasty aspect of feminism, wouldn't it? Next. Talking to Cake, EMRA explained further about the group's history and dealing with men's rights activists. Well folks, it's been a long journey so far, but that was just the intro, and its rabbit hole of links. Next episode we'll jump right into the actual interview and pull that fucker apart. But until then, always remember, don't drink the poison Kool-Aid.
From Tinder?
Tina from Tinder.
Yeah.
Hi. Hey, you look nice. I would say you look pretty, but I don't like to use gendered terms.
Well, actually, I hate that. I'd much rather pull the chair out for myself, thanks.
Oh. Yeah, me too. I hate that. Why can't women just pull out and sit on their own chairs?
Exactly. Yes, treat both sexes equally, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Oh, hey,
Hello?
bro.
Chrissy, he looks just like his pigs.
Hey, bro, she's not a catfish this time, so.
And the best part? He's totally a feminist.
Hey, bro, she's totally a men's rights activist.
We'll talk more later. Bye. That was my sister. She calls me at least twice a day to talk about wedding dresses.
Oh, well, let me guess. The fiance got her a diamond.
Yes, exactly. It's like, who would want that? To get bribed into marriage?
Yeah, why does he have to spend the money?
Plus, now he owns her because she's taking his name.
Yeah, his name that he worked hard to craft. And now she just takes it? It's not like he could take her name.
Well, he could, but society.
What can I get you?
Oh, so I'm a woman, so I should order first?
Yeah, waiter. When was the last time you asked the man first? I'm offended.
Sorry?
Sorry enough for 2 margaritas on the house?
And 2 medium well steaks. Those will pay for it. Man, look at us, huh? We're exactly on the same page.
I know. I'm just so glad that we're both
Men's
feminists.
rights activists.
Wait, what? Men's
Feminists?
rights activists?
Are you joking? Oh my God, you're not joking?
How could this be happening? You're clearly a feminist.
I'm clearly MRA. We just sat here and listed off a bunch of female privileges like woman taking the man's name, woman taking the man's money. Pulling out the chairs!
Right, which makes females dependent on males.
Men get drafted. Women don't.
Which further makes females dependent on males.
All right, here are your steaks. Is everything all right, or?
Nothing's all right for women.
including
Just because I'm an opinionated woman, I'm not allowed to keep a man. Maybe I should just keep my mouth shut, right? Check your privilege. No.
I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I think I'm falling in love with a feminazi.
I'm Jewish.
Look, all I'm trying to say is that women should be treated the same as men.
That's all I'm trying to say.
No, that's what I'm trying to say.
Do we both want the exact same thing?
But for different reasons?
Fuck! You're like that student who got the right answer, but all your work is wrong. And this teacher wants to fuck your misogynistic brains out.
You can fuck me all night long if you want, as long as you don't change your mind tomorrow morning and claim rape.
I'm no liar. I'm a strong female woman, and I know how to lean in.
Oh yeah. Good thing we both hate marriage, or else this would be domestic abuse.
Too bad the vast majority of domestic abuse is perpetrated by men, so yeah, maybe if I had a cock, you want me to have a cock?
Oh, you couldn't handle a cock.
Oh, you couldn't handle having a baby!
You couldn't handle running the world!
Oh, so you admit it!
No!
Yes!